breaking everything, how do you manage virtual teams, and how do you start thinking about preparing for a future that is much more digital and much more virtual than it was just a few months ago? I'm going to introduce you to Andy Prosser. This is a guy with 30 years in the technology space. He is in the business of building sophisticated infrastructure to be able to bring diversified and distributed teams together in an effective way. But he can also show you how to be able to build an effective infrastructure to make sure not only your information is safe, but your systems are efficient. He's going to cover how to make sure everyone can access everything they need from home. He's going to cover how to make sure your team are actually working now they're not in the office anymore. He's going to explain some protocols when you're working with sensitive information that can't just be sent backwards and forwards by email. He's going to be talking about protecting internet connectivity, moving things to the cloud, and covering a whole bunch of common risks where you could get this wrong. So I think you're going to get a lot of value from this session. But before I hand over to Andy, just a little bit of context. So you're about to sit in on a session from one of our crisis reinvention team, but let me give you some quick context. When COVID started to seriously impact businesses, we mobilized experts from within the Dent community to be able to help business leaders like yourself navigate the difficult decisions across a variety of topics, including how to access finance and grants, to cash management, to human resource law, to marketing and sales strategies, to cool tools and tech that you can use from home, through to high stakes leadership, health, wellness, stress management, not just for yourself, but for your team, and look, a whole lot more. For the full schedule, with more being added every week, visit dent.global/reinvent, and we hope you find it a useful resource. All right, let's do this.
G'day everyone, my name's Andy Prosser of The Executive Technologists, and I help businesses re-engineer their core business systems. So what do I mean by that? Well, in every business, we've got three key elements of how business systems go together. One, we've got the front of house or the front end of your business, which is focusing on your sales and marketing activities. That's not what I focus on. There's thousands of people out there who do that, and they do a fantastic job. And honestly, play with them. The other side is your back end, which is talking about your finance and your administration side of things. Again, that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is the systems that you use to deliver your value to your customers, right? The systems that have evolved over the last 5 or 10 years that you've created to allow you to deliver the value that you have, your unique selling proposition, to your customers. So you sell those, whatever it is that you sell to your customers, and then you have some systems that help you do that. Now, a lot of organizations have more technology than others, and some of the technology that they're dealing with could be quite old. Now, the thing is this stuff's evolved, right? We've created it based on when we founded our business, and it's evolved. The systems work, let's be honest, they work. But do they work well? Yeah. Have a look around your business. If there's anyone complaining or swearing at your computer systems, I would say probably not as well as it should, right? This is what we're trying to solve. This is what I help people solve. Okay. Now, why me? What's so good about what I do? Well, I've been in this game, in the technology business for about 30 odd years. I've worked for a lot of different organizations, the likes of Ericsson, Optus, Telstra, NBN here in Australia, other household names like Sony, Coca-Cola, BHP. Fun fact, I actually spent some time studying mining engineering and was literally digging holes and blowing stuff up. Turns out I had more affinity towards the technology that we use to help design these mines, etc., to understand what we're actually going to be building. So I've sort of gravitated towards that particular area. And one of the things that really fascinates me about technology is all the new stuff that's coming along. I was routinely just dragged into stuff that was really brand new. For example, within Ericsson, I was part of a research and development group, and we were developing chatbots, right? This was 20 years ago, back in 2000, we're developing chatbots. Stuff that you take for granted today, we were on the cutting edge of that type of stuff. Also, some of those microtransactions and geolocation type technologies using triangulation of mobile towers that we just use GPS in our smartphones for now. So the idea was that you'd be able to tap into something on your phone and work out where the nearest Coke vending machine was. And you'd turn up and it would know it was you, and you would just pop out your can of Coke and it would then bill your account. Easy, right? Not so easy back when I was playing with this stuff. Other things that I was working on was for various police forces, in terms of the O Operations Centre, where you would have callers come in, call in for that particular operations centre, would do a reverse white pages lookup, work out who the caller was based on your phone number, and then do a geolocation to understand where you are calling from. This was obviously worked really well back in the days before mobile phones were really effective, but and fixed phones were more prevalent, right? Again, this was back in the early 2000s before Google Maps was a thing, right? So, again, this is some cutting edge stuff that I was doing at the time. And I remember on one of those particular projects, I was given 2 weeks to come up with a prototype. Yeah, not long. They would do all this stuff. We had 3 screens. We had audio driving that you used to use your feet, and the team I was working with were doing that so that you'd had in one ear, you'd have the caller, because you always had to be listening to the caller. The other one's dispatch and all of this fun stuff. Really cool, innovative things. Now, I sort of digress a little bit because this was the sorts of things that I used to work with. And I had this driving principle that sort of drives me today, is that for every complex problem we've got, there's a simple solution looking to be found, or waiting to be found. So on that premise, these challenges that were seemingly insurmountable and extremely complex, I was always looking for the simpler solution for that. How can we break this stuff down and make it a lot easier? And sometimes as technologists, what we tend to do is we come up with these really creative systems and really complex, but they're so hard to manage and maintain that we increase the technical debt, right? Technical debt is all that stuff. The easiest way to explain it is in many organizations, and yours is probably no different, we have all of these Excel spreadsheets that we use to run our business, to make decisions, etc., on what it is we're going to do and how we run that business. It might be from simple project management, it could be from costings or budget, or just monitoring stock levels, right? Or even fancy reports for sales pipelines. And some of these things have been developed by people that have long left the organization with some fancy macros in there or some fancy calculations. And now that the business world has changed, we want to make some changes to that, but we don't know how. We might not have access to the password because it's locked, or we might not have the technical capability left within the organization to understand what was done and what was created. This is technical debt, right? And we have to pay that eventually if we want to make changes to this. So I help organizations understand where that technical debt is, how we can help eliminate it, where there's potential points of inertia within the organization, i.e. there's certain systems we have in place, and there's various people that say, no, we've always done it this way, so we can't change that because something might break. All right. Fascinating thing about things breaking is when something actually breaks, it gives you an idea what it does, right? A great example of this was an organization that I was working for, an EPC, Engineering, Procurement, Construction Company, that was onshoring all their technology, right? So they had an offshore management group, and we're bringing all the support for that onshore. Right. So going through the analysis of that, the documentation covered about 50 to 60% of what all these systems did. The rest was sort of unknown. Some we could guess, and we got to about 80%. So there's 20% left over that we had no idea what it did. I'm a little bit aggressive, I suppose, in some of this is, so we'll start turning stuff off. And people go, well, we can't do that. Something will break. Great. We know what it does. If it turn it off and something breaks, we go, okay, well, we turned that thing off. That caused this impact. We know what it does now. We know what it's for. If nothing breaks, then my argument is that perhaps it's not actually needed. But just for the sake of safety, we'll leave the thing available in an offline state for a period of time. It might have been only used once a year for end of financial year. Cool. So we make sure we pass those boundaries, just in case. Right. So we might back it up onto a tape these days, or some other offline storage. Right. So that's what I do in a nutshell. Hopefully, it gives you a bit of some insights there. What does this mean about now? Why is this stuff important now? Right now, the world is suffering through, and I don't have to reiterate too much, probably one of the biggest disruptions to the global economy that the world has seen in recent memory. It's caused businesses to disappear, people to lose their jobs, massive shutdowns, restriction of movement, global supply chains being decimated, we can't travel outside of our own country, sometimes not even outside of our own state or region within our state. And people are getting sick and dying from this COVID-19 crisis and this virus that's gripping the world. It's changed everything. It's changed all the rules. Now, the reason I say that this is a great opportunity and why I'm describing this now is that we have an opportunity for those organizations that have the ability to operate from home or remotely or taking advantage of some of the remote working tools. We have an opportunity now to really have a look at what it means to deliver our core value to our business, our unique selling proposition. Do we need to actually tweak or change what that is? And if so, what does that impact in terms of how we deliver it? Our core business systems need to adapt. Often we don't re-engineer our core business systems because we see that as too hard. We're too scared that we're going to break something by doing that. And if we're too scared to change that, then we don't make those changes and we just continuously just tweaking around the edges. We don't make radical changes to that. I remember one executive at an organization I worked at explained that in terms of re-engineering a business or your core business systems, it's akin to refitting the engine of a Boeing 747 whilst it's in flight. We can't land the plane to make changes, because if we do, we lose momentum. The business stops moving. If we think of our business as that plane. Well, we have an opportunity. Most organizations have reduced their activities by quite a significant margin. Now, some have grown. Others have just gone into hibernation. Right? Somewhere in the middle should be somewhere where your business might be. You've got all these staff working from home. They may not be as productive as they were before. Sales aren't quite as high or as, there's not as a lot of business activity going on. So let's use this as an opportunity to look at how our organization works. How does information flow through your business? And this is where the system that I've put together comes in. So the couple of things here first. We need to, when we're looking at the way our business functions, there's 4 core things we need to look at. We need to understand it it needs to be simple, right? Both from how does a darn thing work through to how do we actually use that. It needs to be clear so we understand exactly what it does. Why do we have it? What does it do? What value is it adding within that whole process and chain? It needs to be repeatable. And the reason this is repeatable is that once we've developed a system or process and we can repeat that, we can actually then get better at it. The quality becomes, we can improve the quality, we can keep doing something that works really well. And there needs to be an element of fun in here. And these are 4 of my core values here, right? The reason the fun is there is because we're going to work, right? Now, if it was boring or monotonous and just irritating, you really wouldn't want to do it. If we can bring and find some fun in there, then people want to do that. They want to show up for work. They want to come in and do what it is they do. And this is the same thing for any customer-facing systems we're building. Think of the popularity of Facebook, for example. People are on there because they see value in it. It's fun. It's easy to use. They like it. There's a lot of dark, sinister stuff that goes on with Facebook, but that's not the point. The point is that it's fun and it's engaging. Same with Twitter. Same with TikTok. Going off absolutely mad. My daughter talks about it all the time. I won't let her go onto it. She's a little young yet. But her cousins are. And the reason is it's fun. We do things a lot because it's fun. If it's not fun, we don't want to do it. So that's why that's a very important piece. Again, hopefully the other elements there. So with those 4 things, simple, clear, repeatable, and fun in mind, let's sort of dig into a little bit of how you can re-engineer your core business. And I have 4 key steps for this. The first one, like any good consultant, you're going to go in and discover what you've got. You don't know what you have until you dig in and discover what you've got there, right? And in this discovery, we're going to look for all those things that you think you need or the things that you have that you might not be utilizing well enough, right? So we dig in and find out what sort of systems you have. Do some are obviously so antiquated we should probably put them down and lay them to rest, right? There's others that you go, well, actually, if we learn a little bit more about how this worked, we could actually use it a bit better. Or perhaps we're using something in a way that we probably shouldn't be using. Or when we go through this discovery process, some large organizations will have multiple of the same systems. I've been in some organizations and they have 14 different information management platforms, all doing the same stuff. You might have multiple CRMs or contact databases. Wow. And that causes, it causes problems with your data in that when you're contacting customers, you don't necessarily have the right and most accurate data. And then information is not consistent. And there's no reason and no problem of having multiple duplicate copies of this stuff. You just have to ensure that you've got a mechanism to keep that stuff in sync. Where's the source of truth? How do we actually ensure that when something changes, it replicates around everything else? This is really, really important. So once we've done this, and there was a fascinating thing, especially like information and content that you got on your file shares, right? A friend of mine, he runs a business here in Australia. It's a US-based firm, and they have these systems which can go through and discover all the content that's within your information stores, your shared drives, your online shared drives like SharePoint, OneDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox, etc. And they look for what sort of content you have in there from a tagging perspective, right? Is it sensitive or confidential or business critical or whatever else you want to classify that stuff as. And through this analysis and over the years, they've worked out that roughly 80% of the stuff they find is what they classify as rot. Right? It's redundant, it's obsolete, or it's temporary. So this stuff you can get rid of. You can just cleanse it. Get rid of it. Take it away from your life. Think of it as a massive spring clean. Now, I've had thousands, well, probably not thousands, but literally hundreds of companies that I've engaged with over the years that have said, oh, don't worry about that. We'll just get some grads in and we'll clean out that stuff ourselves. I can't think of one that managed to succeed on that. Not one. Right? They've all said we're going to go clean that. I mean, I'm as guilty as anyone else. If I look at my OneDrive, it's just a rubbishy mess in some areas. Some areas are good, but there's always this box I have that's too short or that needs to be archived, etc. But we need to become better at actually managing that. We keep it for a rainy day. So how do we improve on that? So once we've done that and we've identified all of that discovery piece, the next bit we move into is a visualization process. Now, I came across this fellow by the name of Simon Wardley about 5 years ago, right? And he, over the last 15 years, has developed this mapping concept that allows you to visualize how your systems work. Based on a chain of needs. And it's always centric from the user or the person who's actually using this, whether it's your customers, your staff, suppliers, vendors, etc. And they have a set of needs. Let's say they need to upload some files somewhere or some photos, right? And that needs a web server, a website somewhere, and then we need to have some storage backing onto that, maybe a database server, the platform that sits on, sitting in a data center, and that has power and water that actually manages that particular facility. All right. And once we've got this, we now understand all the bits and pieces we need to actually allow that to happen. This needs that, that needs that, that needs that, and we can sort of build this map out. Now, Simon's system that he's put together is released it as Creative Commons Share Alike, which basically go and use it for whatever you need, make changes, and if it helps you, wonderful. And if you can give back into that ecosystem, please do. And so this part of the process that he uses, not only does he map out that chain of needs, and we've done value chain mapping before, and that's something that you do as a consultant, right? Most organizations know how to do this, and or system diagrams and things like that. Where Simon's system comes in and changes things is this puts this movement on there in terms of this evolutionary movement, in terms of that things are moving from genesis through to standardization, systemization, through to commodity, through to utility. Right? That technology is continuously trying to evolve towards a utility. We see that with power, we see that with water, we see that with servers and compute and storage and stuff like that today. Now, a lot of you watching this might be thinking, oh, these are all fancy technical words. No, not really. Most of it is fairly accessible. And this is the power of what this mapping does, is it makes it accessible. Once we have these maps in play, we can start communicating with people and having conversations with people throughout the organization to go, well, what's missing? Should this be here, or should that be something in Genesis, or is there a commodity for that? What gaps have we in there? Do we have maybe we need to put a CRM system in there to manage the people who are actually using this system? What bits have been missing? Why is this over there, and where do we attack, and where's the potential opportunities for growth? Because the idea is if everything's moving from Genesis to commodity, we can then go, well, let's outsource all of this stuff, because that's all been done. And we then build on top of that. And then we can build on top of that system. And then we can build on top of that system. We can build systems on top of these giant platforms that we don't have to worry about because someone else has done it for us, right? Think Amazon, with their AWS, Amazon Web Services, right? Think Azure from Microsoft. These outsourced platforms that the likes of Netflix, that other large organizations, Uber and Airbnb and such like, have built their platforms on top of, right? You don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. And so once we have these visualizations and we've got this chain of needs, we can sort of start having this conversation. That helps with the simplicity and the clarity around what it is we're trying to do. Once we've got to this and we know where we're going to go and what we're going to attack and how we're going to transform, this is when we start modernizing. Right? We modernize in the way we actually run our business in terms of the core systems. We get rid of the old, we replace it, we upgrade it, we expand on top of that. And there'll be a lot of systems that you can retire. Okay, a lot of things you realized that once you've visualized all your chain of needs and you create all these maps that join all your systems together, there's this whole bunch of stuff you no longer need. And why is that important today? It's important today in that we're now becoming more effective at what we do. Not necessarily efficient, but more effective. Things are flowing through from one end to the other. It's everything makes sense. There's a purpose for everything that we have within our organization. And that makes a massive difference in terms of the way your organization operates. There's less duplication. There's less printing out or writing down notes. I've got a couple of notes here that I'm using for this particular video, right? And there's less need for that duplication. How many times have you heard when you've been on a call to a various organization saying, "Oh, just hold on a second, sir or madam. I just have to wait for this other system to respond. I'll just copy your data that I keyed in here over to this other system," right? That's waste. That's not being effective. It's not being efficient with your time and energy. And this is the whole idea of modernization. We start developing single sources of truth. We start connecting things together so that we're delivering more value with less effort. Right? That's the goal here, right? And it's fun, it's repeatable, it's easy. And we do this in various aspects of our organization. We solve one problem. Maybe we focus on what it is our core business is, right? And we solve those problems. We solve all these little problems, these little paper cuts. And I call this the death of 1,000 paper cuts. One paper cut won't hurt you. 1,000 of them probably will cause you considerable pain. And that's what we're trying to look at solving. And once we've got these happening, and we've solved these little problems, we've solved these little micro workflows, and we're starting to connect stuff together in a more effective way, and we understand where the points of inertia are. We know where the technical debt is. We know how to leverage the technologies and systems that are available for more effective use to deliver a better value, better outcome for our customers, right? With less effort. It's more repeatable, it's more effective, it's more fun. Everything is just starting to work. We can then start amplifying this. We can then continuously look for new opportunities, new places where we can get rid of technical debt, new opportunities to transform what we do. Maybe we've developed our systems in such a clear way and things are working so effectively that instead of having one office in one city in the world, we now reproduce that somewhere else. We take what we're doing here in Sydney, we move that to London, we do the same thing. The same technologies, the same systems, the same platforms. And the cool thing is that because we have those maps now, and we get an understanding of where everything fits together, then we can continuously look for opportunity. And this is really, really important. Technology does not stand still. It is continuously moving. And if you, as an organization, are not continuously evolving and looking for new opportunities, new technologies that you can adopt into your organization, you're going to get caught flat-footed. How many organizations out there got caught out when everyone got locked down into working from home? Hundreds of them, thousands of them. Because they didn't know how to adapt to this new technology. They didn't know how to take advantage of Zoom. They didn't know how to take advantage of Microsoft Teams or Slack or all of these remote working tools that are available. They couldn't adapt. They didn't have VPNs in place that allowed their organization to connect in, their staff to connect into their organization. They didn't have a handle on how we're now going to manage our workflows, that they're not face-to-face anymore. We're still measuring their value and their output based on the time they spend doing something. And if you're doing that, you're in a problem, because working from home is a different paradigm. You don't measure value based on time. You measure value based on what output they can deliver. Someone who can deliver the same 4 things you need to do in 4 hours, are they more valuable to you than someone who takes 8 hours to achieve those same things? Now, if you're paying people based on time, then the person who's doing it in 4 hours is getting penalized because of their effectiveness. Yeah. I'm sorry. They will then slow down, and you're getting less value because they'll say, oh, look, it took me 8 hours. Actually pay the guy who does it in 4 hours for 8 hours work, because they're still delivering the same amount of value. They're just more effective at doing that. They're better at their job, I would argue. All right. So we have to use different tools to actually measure this. And so the thing is that those people who got caught flat-footed, and the reason that they got caught flat-footed is they didn't understand their technology landscape. They didn't understand their business and how it played out. They didn't understand what was coming, what new systems were coming into place. They didn't know how to adapt. And this is the whole thing of what I do, and what we should be doing today is all about re-engineering your business. But it's not just re-engineering your business because we're stuck in this lockdown situation, everyone's working from home. It's because something else is going to come along that's going to disrupt your business. So if you're used to re-engineering your business, looking at what opportunities you have, so that when something comes along, you can adapt. Imagine you ran a taxi business and Uber comes in, and you've been running your business like that for 20 odd years. And Uber just completely disrupts everything that is your business. How do you respond? If you're used to adapting, you go, okay, so we'll just build our own little thing that works in a similar way to Uber. We hadn't thought of that as a business model, but we'll just adapt and roll with it. But no, that's not how that happened with the taxi industry. The taxi industry was caught completely off guard. And it took them at least 12 to 18 months before a credible competitor to Uber came in. And they're still suffering today because of that. And these are the sorts of challenges that we need to be ready for and ready to adapt. So, in summary, we need to rethink about our core business. This is what delivers value for our organizations. We need to look at continuously re-engineering that. Looking at opportunities to erase or shift technical debt, pay that down. Get rid of that technical debt, get rid of those Excel spreadsheets you've been relying on for the last decade. All right, transform that into something new. How can we connect everything together much more effectively? All right, so that we have less duplication of data, less rekeying of information, less pain for our customers dealing with us. And also ability to react and respond to things as it changes and as business environment and the world around us changes, that we can adapt to that quickly, because we're used to re-engineering ourselves, recreating ourselves regularly. All right. Blockchain. That's a new tech that everyone's talking about. Is that valuable to your business or not? Investigate it, test it, validate. Could it work? What can it do? Video conferencing, working from home, smartphones. They came out in 2007. Now everyone has one. And any business that hasn't adapted their organization to leverage the power that's sitting in everyone's pocket is probably playing catch up still. And you'd be surprised how many organizations are leveraging the power that's sitting in everyone's pockets. Google. Everyone uses Google Maps. There's so many things out there. There's artificial intelligence. There's machine learning. All of these things are coming on the horizon that we need to start looking at. Can we leverage that for our business? 3D printing is now quite viable for a whole pile of different things. This is what we need to be thinking about. We can't do that if we don't have a proper map for how our users, whether they be our staff, whether that be our customers, and understand all the things of how it all connects together. If you can't visualize that, it's very, very hard for you to understand where to attack. Where do you invest your money? This is critical. We don't have a lot of it right now, and there's a lot of uncertainty. Once you have a map and have an understanding of how you can visualize everything you have, where you're going, where you can attack, you know where you can spend your money. You know how to invest. There's less uncertainty and more certainty. This is what you need to be able to develop if you want to successfully re-engineer your systems and your business. So with that, for those who are still struggling, right, and I know there's some of you out there, those who are still struggling to adapt to this whole working from home stuff, I've got some free resources sitting on my website. It'll be available in the comments that allows you to just run through a little bit of a checklist. If you're a business owner or a business leader and you've got a few questions of what things you're missing for being able to successfully run and operate remote workers, there's a checklist for you guys, right? A couple of pages, go through and just check things up. It will possibly open and raise a number of questions. That's good, but it might actually answer a few things. You go, actually, we've got this, and you feel comfortable with that. The more you can tick off, the better. Same thing for staff or for workers at home. If you're just an employee, you're seeing this video, go and have that. There's one there for you as well. Or if you're a business owner, you can always share this with your staff so that they start getting comfortable in this new home environment. How are we going to actually do that? There's a lot of challenges here. There's a lot of different things we have to sort of overcome. And finally, I went on about Simon's work and mapping, and some of it is probably just gone way over everyone's head. I implore you, I have a bonus video that I've linked to that Simon recorded a couple of years ago that goes through and explains his whole methodology. It's about 45 minutes. First 30 minutes covers off mapping, and then he goes off into some bonus stuff after that. For me, it changed my world in terms of how we visualize stuff, how we actually look at strategy, how we look at technology, and how we can actually start bringing that stuff together. Why here over there, what it means, etc. Spend 30 minutes, 45 if you've got the time. Go through his stuff and have a look. I swear, if it, like me, it will change your world, and it'll change every review of how you approach this stuff. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I hope you found some value in that. Like I said, for every complex problem we face, there's a simple solution looking to be found. All right? If you can think of that, you can come up with a simple, clear, repeatable, and fun way of doing that. Please do that. Start re-engineering your businesses today. Start visualizing how that's going to look. Plan for the future today so that when we start coming out of quarantine and lockdown, etc., where you're ready to go. You are absolutely smashing it. And if you can actually achieve it now to re-engineer your business in such a way that you can take advantage of the current situation, let me know. Good luck. And it's going to be a fascinating future. Bye for now.
For more expert talks, just visit dent.global/reinvent, because we believe that the decisions that you make now matter more than ever. We started Dent 10 years ago in the middle of the GFC in London, and we shared the key person of influence methodology as a tool to be able to help businesses thrive despite the chaos. Today, it's a best-selling book, and over 3,000 businesses use the methodology like an operating system for driving performance. And we've learned that regardless of economic conditions, that your primary focus as a founder should be showing up as the go-to brand, the key person of influence in your industry. More important than systems or social media, more important than Facebook videos or launching a website, the goal of showing up as the key person of influence in your industry should be the organizing force. It should be the primary objective that helps align all your other decision making. Because as your influence and reach expands, it becomes easier and cheaper to attract clients, team, media, even investors. When times are tough, it's the key people of influence that become even more valuable and even more in demand. And if you've been in business for a while, you're probably a lot closer than you think. So every week that this COVID-19 thing continues, I'm going to be hosting a weekly talk to be able to help business leaders like yourself recalibrate their focus so they can make the most of the times that we're in. If you're interested in jumping on a Zoom and saying hi with me, you can find the link to register for my sessions as well as all of the crisis response team sessions at dent.global/reinvent. If you found this useful, let us know. My name's Glenn Carlson, and please be brave, have fun. Let's go make a dent in the universe.